Welcome to an incomplete guide to personal growth. We invite you to take a breath and take a listen to our podcast that explores the wonder, humor, challenges, and sometimes those self-inflicted wounds on the journey of personal growth.
Our weekly podcast conversations include stories, resources, and tools that you can incorporate into your daily life. We're the mother-daughter duo of Sydney West
and Kelly Arundel.
Hey, Mom.
Hey, Sid.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah?
Yeah. The weather's like just making the traffic icky.
I know. Cloudy and rainy for probably at least a week now.
I know, and I don't see sun in the forecast.
No. So.
Yeah.
But, okay. Do you ever think, oh, I only nicked myself, or oh, that really wasn't that bad, and then you look later and you're like, oh my goodness.
Yes.
So this happened to me because Charles, I try and give him a book during his diaper changes to entertain him. And he had it and then decided he didn't want the book anymore. So he dropped it down and it landed on my foot. Oh. And it definitely hurt in the moment.
Well, your
really
feet
hurt.
when something is just nerves.
It really hurt. And then I look later and I've got a giant bruise
that covers your foot.
And it's been there I think that happened last week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's still there. It's great. So it's just you think you nick and then you don't.
You don't, and then you don't.
Or you don't even know how you hurt yourself.
You don't even know. I went to the doctor a week or so ago because I kept thinking I had a really tight muscle. I thought, I must be more stressed than I realized because my shoulder is... And then I kept trying to do stuff with it and nothing worked. And I thought, this doesn't even feel like a muscle anymore. So I went and I had... They called it a slap tear, some kind of labral.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, I have to go to physical therapy, and I have absolutely no idea how that happened. It's my left, so it's not like I throw or do anything like that with it. Yeah. So anyway, we just don't know how stuff happens.
You just don't know.
Yep.
Cool. We're rounding out our mental health month topics.
Yeah, and again, if you are in a crisis, if you need to talk with somebody, there's a national hotline, 988, and they have trained professionals to talk with you, as well as get you in contact with places where you're located. Yeah. So just want to shout that out one more time.
Yes. So our topic today is self-compassion. Yes. So, we talked about emotional wellness at the very beginning, the wellness wheel, and then we had our discussion with Bernie about anxiety and then depression. And those can be hard things to, if it happens to be you, to learn about yourself. And so now it's kind of okay, how do we have compassion for ourselves when we're going through hard times or dealing with difficult things? So do you want to tell us what is it?
I don't know. No,
it sounds like self-compassion. You're like, oh, I think I know what that is. But I feel
be gentle with yourself. I know. Yeah, there is.
I think it can be more specific.
There is. I'm going to give a shout out to Kristen Neff. Mm-hmm. She has and we'll put this out there, a website that is selfcompassion.org. And it's a great website, has a lot of resources on it. So some of the quotes come from her today. There's other resources that we'll list also. First, I'm going to say my own thought is it is the most wonderful, life-giving gift you can give yourself.
Yeah.
And when we think of compassion, the word compassion, you can go back to the root, it's
Latin, whatever.
Yeah.
Yes.
With suffering.
Yeah.
And we think of being compassionate with others, but self-compassion is turning that compassion inward toward yourself. When we're kind and understanding rather than judgmental and harshly critical of ourselves. When we make mistakes, when we fail at something, when we feel inadequate, when we just simply are living our daily lives, you give yourself support and encouragement versus the harshness. And it self-compassion plays a lot of in our wellness.
Yeah.
Physical, in our stress level, in our emotional regulation,
Yeah.
all in our relationships, all those things.
Yeah.
When we can be compassionate toward ourselves.
Yeah. It affects. Yeah.
It does. And I think most people will say, yeah, I'm a good friend. I'm compassionate. I can do.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow it even enhances that.
Yeah.
When you can be it to yourself, there's something that becomes even more authentic because you realize the oneness of our hurting that we all do.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that's one definition.
So I think, okay. So I mean, if you want to talk about other stuff first, you can. My biggest thought when it comes to self-compassion is I feel like it's almost harder for younger generations and like millennials on to necessarily think about doing that, because so often social media, older generations, we have this title of being selfish. Like people think that we're self-centered, and so it's like, oh, well, how I need to be thinking about everybody else all the time and not myself. And so that's why I feel like self-compassion, sometimes you're like, well, what? No, I need to be focusing on it because people say I'm selfish, so I need to not,
Yes. So what crossed my mind as you were saying that is how much of that self-centeredness did parents put on that generation? Hovering, which is, I think that's one of the tendencies of the parents of that generation. When you're hovering, then guess what the center is?
Yeah.
You.
Yep.
Because your parents are hovering over you.
Yes.
And doing for you and you and you. So I don't know that that's a fair assessment of that generation. I don't think it is. So I think that's maybe where that's coming from. Suddenly all the parents are like, well, aren't they selfish little creatures I created? I'm of that generation, so I can say that. Hopefully I didn't.
No.
But, I think that's part of it, right? So I don't think you're...
Yeah.
I don't see that.
Yeah.
Self-compassion can feel selfish.
Yes.
And I will say this, for women...
even
I
more.
hate to bring the sexist thing into it, but for women, we're supposed to just give until we're dry.
It's almost like guilty for taking that self-compassion.
For taking care. But self-compassion, so I don't really see that in that generation.
I
don't think it's...
But it's just something that like
put it on.
Media has put on that generation.
And I think that it is even harder for your generation to be self-compassionate.
Yeah.
Because of social media.
Yes.
Because all is constantly being compared.
Yes. It's like, do I really have a right to be this upset? Do I really have a right to... It's like, well, you do, because that's how you feel. But,
Yeah, and just what people put out there isn't reality. And when we compare ourselves, to go, well, I'm not doing that.
Then you feel worse about yourself.
Right. So I think that probably plays into it.
Yes.
I do want to touch on Thich Nhat Hanh.
Oh, yeah.
I have a book by him, and we'll mention that too. No Mud, No Lotus. But he talks about, there we go. If we let suffering take over our minds, it overwhelms us.
Yeah.
Suffering such as the messages that we play. So I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and she's taking some classes right now, and there was an assignment that she didn't get turned in on time because she was having some issues at her home, and she didn't get it turned in. She emailed the professor, didn't get back in time, and she didn't get it turned. So basically, she missed it.
Yeah.
And she's on this cutoff line for wanting a grade, getting a certain grade, and it's building up. Well, it circled her brain for a week, right? And then it came to her attention of, what would I tell a friend? Well, I'd say, did you do what you could?
Yeah.
Everybody makes mistakes. This is a common thing with people taking classes in college.
Yeah.
No matter what level.
Yeah.
And so what did you do? Did you do the... Okay. Oh, I don't have to figure out why did I keep doing that wrong? Why did I? What's me? It's you.
Yes.
So it's suffering, right?
Yeah.
And so we create that. And Thich Nhat Hanh says that it'll overwhelm our minds. So invite another energy, and he compares this other energy to a parent who, when their child is crying and you have no idea why,
yes,
you pick them up and you cradle them. And eventually, your calming energy becomes their calming energy.
Yeah.
And if we can do that to ourselves,
yeah,
and cradle our hurt, not say it's
it's
not valid,
not
but just
yeah.
then the problem becomes workable. Because we're in a different state of mind. We're not spiraling, we're not spinning, we're holding that close.
Yeah.
And we can be compassionate with it and gentle.
Yes.
And then take a look at it and maybe invite somebody else to help us take a look at it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we're too close or we can't see it or we just need somebody, a friend or somebody to talk through with it.
Yes.
But I love that image of just hold it.
Holding it, yeah.
Hold it tight, and it doesn't mean it's not going to be painful. It doesn't mean it evaporates. It means that we begin from a different point of view.
Yeah, definitely.
So I do like that.
Oh, I know, he's so good. He's just a great person to read about suffering.
He does.
He writes on it very well.
Yeah.
So you sent me something, and it had kind of like the steps of self-compassion. Do you have anything?
Yeah.
On that?
Yeah. I do.
Where you start with. I have self-kindness, so I think that has to do with the cradling the hurt.
Yes.
You know,
to instead of harshly judging with negative thoughts where our mind will go, shaming ourselves.
Yeah.
Oh, woe is me, that kind of thing. To shift into that warmth.
Yeah.
Of cradling and accepting. We all lose people.
Yeah.
We all have pain. We all make mistakes. We say things. We do things. We just and sometimes we don't do any of those.
Yeah.
Yet we still are critical.
Yeah.
Enoughness, self-acceptance, those type of things.
Yeah.
They just are. They're just there.
Yeah.
And so if we can start with self-kindness with a different message.
Yeah.
Everybody does. I'm like everyone else. I'm human.
Yes.
Start with that and just being the gentle and cradling.
Yeah. And I think the next step too is kind of goes with my thought right now that I'm going with.
Okay.
So the common humanity is the next thing that I have, and that has to do with, I'm in the human experience with everybody else. It's not just me. The other, so there's the one side where you can feel so alone, and having that thought is comforting. Then I feel like there's the other type of spiraling where you kind of want it to be self-centered. You want it to be like, I'm hurting. I want to be, like I want to be. And so I almost feel like that common humanity one where it's comforting in one sense, thinking about it in that sense is almost just like, well, let's get back to reality. You are not the only person that goes through. It's kind of almost more like a hard truth.
It is a hard truth. And to me, and I do this with many things, is, okay, let me bring my scope back.
Yes. Yeah.
Let me look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
There's moments, and I think maybe this is when a crisis or something first happens, where we just have the capacity to go, I lost somebody.
Yeah.
I just totaled my car.
I want the pity. And
I got a diagnosis that's very difficult.
Yeah.
I've got cancer. I've got this. And go, whoosh.
Yeah.
And let ourselves cry and hold ourselves. That's that gentleness.
Yeah.
Then to connect with humanity.
Yeah.
There are others who have been through this. I wonder how they made it.
Yeah.
What is it that I can draw back and go, it didn't zap because if it's you, Kelly, this is going to happen. It's not that. It's humanity.
It's just being on earth. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. The humanness of it all. And in reality, oddly enough, that's what connects us.
Mm-hmm.
Our stories of suffering, our stories of hurt.
Yeah.
That, oh, yeah. So I think that,
because I was just thinking, it's like, yeah,
yeah,
you can have, yeah, the calm humanity can be comforting, but in other ways, if you want, if you want
I
that
just need the
moment of
attention.
centeredness,
Yeah.
that it's
Yeah.
kind of like a hard truth that you got to deal with.
It
But
is.
then it becomes, I think, then it becomes comforting if you let it.
If you let it, because, yeah, and it's, when somebody is so within themselves and it's all me, it's harder for people to care for them too.
Yeah.
Because they don't let you. Oh, it's just me,
Yes.
and they don't allow you. Because I think about
Yes.
when Mom passed away, or
Yeah.
when other people came and they cared for her, and they cared for us,
Yes, they did.
and so they were able to show it because we allowed them
to. Yeah.
and it was comforting to know. And now, because it's kind of like, oh, I've lost somebody, I know how that feels. Okay,
Yep.
I know what comforted.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, then
there's
you
this
can
cycle
tap
that
into that.
connects us.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
And then the last thing that I have like on the steps section is a mindful approach.
Yes.
So can you describe like what that means? So we've exhibited self-kindness to ourselves. We have realized that we are part of the greater world and people.
Yeah.
And now what is this mindful approach?
Mindful approach is then being able to look at it and use our mind, curiosity. What is this that's going on?
Yeah.
How do I adjust my life for this period of time for me? What am I going to do that's helpful? How have I played into this?
Yeah, some responsibility.
What is mine?
And what is not mine?
And what is not mine?
Yeah.
Right. And just to look at it, and rather than not over-identifying with it and becoming it, but looking at it. And I saw this quote, and I think I wrote it down, by Sharon Salzberg, and it says, if we can be with something, we can learn from it. If I can be with my suffering,
Yeah.
and do this part, this mindful part,
Yeah.
I can learn something from it. I can learn how to be kind to myself.
Yes.
I can learn how to comfort myself. I can learn that I'm part of humanity and that others have something to teach me about this. I can learn about me in this.
And I like be with, because you're being with it, which is next to, you're not becoming.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not over-identified. It's just being with it and being curious and going, wow. You know, it's like the simple thing is when I was talking about that paper turning in. Okay, now then, I've gone through, I quit beating myself up and started being kind to myself about that, let's say. And then I realized there's probably not a university student
who hasn't done it.
Yeah, except for you.
Except for me.
But,
Sorry, I was about to say, I was like, I don't think I've done that.
But there's a majority of us who have, let's say that. And then the mindful approach is, what was my part in it? I probably should have turned it in, even though the teacher didn't say I could do it late. I'm going to turn it in late and then deal with that later.
Yeah.
Also, the communication doesn't always happen well in university. Okay, I've learned that too. What I learned, and I focus too highly on it, and it'll probably be helpful not to next time.
Yeah.
So it's this learning from it.
Yeah.
And then when the wonderful thing about that is, because as life happens, things happen again and again, similar circumstances, right? And you go, I remember
be a little
last
quicker.
time. Yes, like at this moment, I'm needing to make a phone call that I have been putting off because it's just I want to leave a message, but I'm sure it'd be nicer just to talk to the person. And so until I make that, it's in my head.
Yes.
So what I've learned in the past is that when I do it faster,
then it doesn't sit with
it doesn't sit with me, right?
Yeah.
But I'm creating my own suffering. But
That's
by
so
the end of this
funny.
day, it will be taken care of. But yeah.
Yes.
Another example. Do you have a question?
No.
Okay. Another thing that I absolutely love by Thich Nhat Hanh, he talks about trees. And I know I love trees and analogies.
Yes.
But when we get overwhelmed in our mind and when we are cycling and going through those thoughts, I'm not enough. Well, so-and-so has already gotten this far in their career and I haven't, and I'm not doing this or I'm not doing.
Yeah.
When I get to doing that, I'm all up here in my head. So he talks about trees. If you watch a tree in a storm, you look at the top of the tree, there's chaos. The leaves, everything's bending and blowing and da-da-da-da. But if you look at the trunk of the tree,
it's stable.
There's some stability, right? And so to be able to bring our brain, which is a tree flailing everywhere, the leaf, to come down to the center.
Yeah.
And that's that comforting and calming. Then we can go back up into the brain and,
and calm
and do the mindfulness that we need to. So I thought that was really fascinating.
Yes. Oh, I really like that.
It's a great image to hold on to.
Yes. Yeah, and I think in all of this, I think the hardest thing with self-compassion is that I think the concept that mess ups are okay is difficult for a lot. I mean, it's difficult, I think, for a lot of people to accept, especially when it hurts others. Because then you just beat yourself up. Why did I do that? But in the end, like, that doesn't even help the person that you hurt. What helps the person that you hurt is to be different and to change and to have different habits or whatever is needed for that. Where, like, if you spiral, then you're not going to change anything. The most likely thing to happen is if it happens again, you're going to behave the exact same way because you haven't changed anything.
You didn't sit with it and learn it, right?
And learn from it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do. I think that cancel culture, whatever the heck that stuff is.
Yes.
I know what it is. But we just...
It's so immediate.
It is. Yes. And it's almost like
there's some things with cancel culture that
I understand.
But there's some of it
but
that
it's kind of like
quick.
the disposable. When we're doing something, we just throw it out.
Yes.
We just throw it out. We just throw it out. Well, don't learn from it, right?
Definitely.
So I have this other thing about self-compassion is a practice of goodwill, not good feelings. So it's not like you're going to be all warm and fuzzy through this process.
Love that.
Isn't that the best?
God, so good.
It's not about
because I think
good
people hear
feelings.
Self-compassion, and sometimes they think,
warm and fuzzy.
I need to be feeling this way in order to have this self-compassion. And so you can have the other extreme, just brushing things aside that really need to be looked at. I love that.
So it is, and those steps make so much sense when you read that about, I'm going to hold you gently. Okay? All right, we've calmed down.
Yeah.
You know you're loved. You know you're centered. You know you're okay.
Yeah.
And now we can step back and we can look
at
what is not really pretty.
Yeah.
And gain some perspective and go, wow, that wasn't the best decision.
Yeah.
Or that wasn't, okay.
And then you can adjust.
So what am I going to learn? I'm going to
what you can control.
Yeah. So it's not all warm and fuzzy.
Right. It can be hard. Yeah.
It can be hard, but
But the goal...
So much good comes from that work.
I know. See, and then I think
so
then the goal is that
you
do start feeling good. You start to feel better about yourself and better about how you treat people and better,
The more I can be kind to myself and realize, don't judge so quickly.
Yes.
Kelly, you were going through this, and this is what happened. This is okay. And then I can watch others and go, that's hard. I don't have to judge.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea what they're going through.
Yeah.
I have no idea. But I can just be there.
Yeah. Definitely.
And maybe with compassion, they invite us to take a look with them.
Yeah.
And do it gently, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's better for everybody.
It is. It is. There's just, one the next. There is also, I found it last night.
Okay.
On the self-compassion website, and I'll do this link, there's a self-compassion test.
Ooh.
Test to see how compassionate you are with yourself. And then you go, that's an area that I might be more aware of and maybe work with a little bit.
Now I have to go take it.
I know, right? Isn't that great?
That's cool.
I thought that was so cool.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's the challenge. Go take the self-compassion test.
That's your action for this
and
week.
And then see what you might need to work on. Yes, definitely. That's so cool.
That is.
Man. Yeah.
I've got one more little poem that I found.
We haven't had a poem in a bit.
I know.
This will be good.
This is by John O'Donohue.
Okay.
And he was a wonderful poet. He's got fantastic stuff out there. But may all that is unforgiven in you be released. May your fears yield their deepest tranquilities. May all that is unlived in you blossom into the future, graced with love. And
like
is
it.
that not gentleness?
That's
right?
so gentle. Yeah.
I just think
Yeah.
that gift of self-compassion releases us,
Mm-hmm.
releases the fear of mistakes, of failure, of not enoughness, of
Yeah, all of it.
I can't, or well, look, I'm comparing myself. All that to live fully
Yeah.
and compassionately with ourselves and then with others.
Yes.
And it's just this energy
Yeah.
effect that goes out, that ripples out.
Yeah, definitely. And people can see it. People can see it.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and feel it, I hope.
Yes.
You know me.
Well, I hope that is a nice positive note for everybody. And I think self-compassion is something everybody can do for their own mental health and mental well-being. So, yeah, definitely felt like that was a really good end to the month.
We'll be releasing a
meditation
on
self-compassion. So we've been having some meditations released through our Patreon for our Patreon supporters, and then this one we will release for everybody.
Yes.
So
check out our website, and again, when you do, there's a resource page that has we'll have all the things listed that we've used.
Yes.
For each episode, and especially this episode, again, we'll have the self-compassion test link on there.
Yes.
If you,
so that'll be good.
It's interesting.
But yeah, and so you can look out for our Instagram page. I'll post when the meditation is out and all that, and you can get all that info. And then next time we're going to be doing an experience and then coming back to talk about it with you all. We've decided, so there are lots of different experiences we feel like we can have, and we'll kind of do these little sessions like as we go. But this first one, we're going to try a float spa. And so it's a pool filled with super salted water. So it's almost like a desensitizing. It's like a no senses experience. And it's an hour. So I'll need to come up with some music.
I don't know what I'll do.
But we're going to experience it and then tell you what it's like and what sort of, maybe it could be for people, personal growth experience.
Yeah.
Who knows? So
Stretching.
that's what,
That's for sure.
right. So that's what next time will be about. Yep.
So we look forward to next Tuesday when we take a breath and take a listen.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of An Incomplete Guide to Personal Growth. There are many ways you can stay connected. Follow us on Instagram at An Incomplete Guide Podcast, where you can sign up for our email list and get posts that delve deeper into our weekly topics. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast page wherever you listen to your podcasts. We would really appreciate a rating and sharing us with your family and friends.
We're so glad you chose to spend your time with us and hope there was a thought, a resource, or a laugh that you can take on your journey. We'll be here every Tuesday for you to take a breath and take a listen.